Hey all. So this is our last war of the off season, the very, very long off season. I think a lot of us are very much ready for things to start up again in earnest. And so we did a full plan of attack for war today, and I ended up on Kingpin duty, which I think will probably happen a fair amount this season. Um, I have a fairly broad roster, which means I'm often waiting until the end to assign myself, and sometimes that's just going to mean, oh, you know what still needs to be handled? All of those fights that Kingpin is perfect for. So here we have a bunch of them. Airwalker is a pretty good example of somebody who throws enough debuffs to overwhelm Kingpin's Purify, but, ever since his buff, every time he gets to 8, he just resets and keeps on trucking and just hits harder and harder. And so that's how you get nice short fights like that. There are very, very few champions that can actually stop him on these paths, and those that can are usually vulnerable to others. So here we have Professor X. I am healing on some level. Maybe I don't need to, but we're still getting compensation for the engine rebuild, so I don't mind spending them to make sure that I'm healthy for the full path to try and get a real picture of what this is going to feel like. I'm not boosted at all. Um, so anything in season would be that much better. I would have that much more health. Um, I would be hitting that much harder. We'd just be in great shape. I might also be throwing around some gray boosts, which I did not for any of these fights. Obviously, both of these fights are high ground as well, so a bit extra damage that way. But one thing that Kingpin is very good at is staying aggressive if you're comfortable using that unstoppable for openings. Like, you can also parry, but since sometimes that's not super comfortable in general lately, and especially at close quarters, being able to just block and use that unstoppable for openings can help you stay nice and aggressive and just power through high ground. So, this next fight here, this man thing, is one that I've wanted to take for a while because on paper he's one of the most anti Reed mystics because he inflicts poison and Reed is not poison immune. And I've had a number of people ask me if he can take this, and I've always said the same thing. I haven't risked it in season yet, but in theory it should work. And here, you're seeing me testing that theory. So, because this is one of the harder Reed fights, I am bothering to power start. And remember that I run 3 out of 3 in the Petrify Mastery, so that plus the suppression debuff from Reed's pre-fights means that off the bat, I'm reducing his combat power rate, how much he's getting when I hit him, by 55%. As soon as I throw that first special 2, then that jumps up to 80%. Additionally, the damage from that poison is already being cut in half because by the time he throws his first special, we have 2 debuff siphoners up. So it does hurt. Like, that damage does overpower willpower, but only barely. It would be double that, and instead of almost nothing on net, it would really start to add up. So I did make one mistake in there earlier. I'd been playing too much on my alt account and overtrusted my stun. Luckily wasn't punished for it, but I wouldn't have taken that much damage even if I had. And notice that he's more than half down and has only been able to throw a single special thus far. So we've only had to deal with 2 poisons. It's hard for this fight to be much easier than this. I know that this is a really good fight for Mr. Negative and Spider-Man 2099, but the reason that I ended up taking it was A, for science. I wanted to know it was possible now rather than in season when it mattered. And the other reason was to try and get extra pre-fights. Because having that one careful study passive means that I'm coming out of this fight with 1 more than I went in with. Now, I was hoping that that second hit there killed him before the stun expired and I would get 5 charges out of that. Ended up only getting 4, but it's still a net gain, which is going to allow me to use one on one of these Kingpin fights and still have the 3 I need to help out an alliance mate further on. So as far as I'm concerned, worth having me take it and not one of the Negs or Spider 2099 players. So Dragon Man, probably running max Mystic Dispersion. This would be kind of a nice one to potentially put a pre-fight on, but early on we stun there. Notice that we do not hit into it because there is one eye open, but they took Window of Opportunity off, so you can stun to get rid of the power charge. You just don't want to hit him while he's stunned because all of the damage will be reflected. So whenever he hits us through the block with the special 1, puts that ineptitude on us, which sometimes we purify, sometimes we don't. It all gets reset when you get to 8, like I said. But like I said, he does have, it looks like a fair amount of Mystic Dispersion. Yeah, so there when our Unstoppable ended, I mean, it's at least 3 points, so we just have to be careful, make sure we keep baiting. There, that was an ill-advised evade in the middle of his special 1. I would have caught that in the duel and not done it in season. But basically, we were only stunning at the beginning to get rid of the power charge, because after that, it's better for us in most ways to get it from blocking the special 1 or from baiting the special 2. I just kind of wanted to arrest it early on before, things got rolling on both sides. So we've taken a fair amount of damage, some from blocks, some from, the various damage over time debuffs, the bleeds and the shocks that have landed. That is kind of the problem with using Kingpin on these lanes. Unlike, when Ghost works, some of those debuffs are going to get through, and he is going to eat up potions. I think after the compensation packages calm down, you're actually going to want to trade off Kingpin duty, because you could burn through somebody's stash pretty quickly if you sent the same person here every time. That said, as long as you heal up, there's not a lot of things that can kill him. And we're about to get a really good illustration of that with this Mojo fight. Because this is, Mojo is not someone you want to fight with Kingpin. Kingpin has active buffs. Kingpin has no power control if you're not bringing Sinister. And so I'm having to play around his prompts here. And we are triggering, that looks like about 3 points in Mystic Dispersion. So there are some definite problems here. And when our buffs end, he gains Mystic Dispersion and that healing and a bit of power gain if we satisfy his prompts like we did there. That degen is pretty significant. So this is not ideal, but notice how we waited out that anti-life field until there was a prompt where, we could safely hit into him without completing it. Here we're going to hold our block a lot because we don't want him to throw a special attack. We're not going to throw ours yet, but we do want to be ready, have the special 2 when we're done. We don't want to, dex out of too much while we have dodge a hit up, but now we throw our special 2. Reset, we have double overpower, going to hit into him with that unstoppable. Like I said, you don't necessarily need to stun, and the special 1 finishes him off. Now we took a lot of damage there, but again, this is unboosted, not even any gray boosts. So we could have had more health to spare, we could have been hitting harder, we could have had a regen boost at the beginning, or, something along those lines to help us out. Maybe a power start to get us to the special 2 faster to ramp. Either of those would have been pretty good. So Kingpin is potentially an expensive option, but an extremely safe one. And now I've proven that there's one more champion that Reed just eats alive on Power Snack. So, very successful off-season war. The rest of the battle group is taking some really interesting fights. I'm looking forward to things starting for real on Thursday. Hope everyone out there had a good break and is looking forward to war. And I will catch you next time. Till then, thanks for watching, and take care.